Boys, today I decided that we need to go through every single championship win that we have from our current champions and simply just rank them. Which is the worst title defense / title fight win, and which one is the best title defense or title fight in general? So that being said, yes, I am going to include, when they won the belt. That's going to be included in this list. Every title fight's going to be included in this list. And as well, I'm going to include Makhachev. Yes, technically this dude ain't no champion no more, but he never lost the belt. He is moving up to fight JDM. I'm still going to include him. We got Pantoja, we got Moreno, we got Volkanovski, we got Topuria, we got Islam, we got JDM, we got DDP, and of course we got the boy Tom Aspinall. With that being said, I'm gonna include for Tom Aspinall his interim fights, because at the end of the day, that was a real belt. Let's be realistic. But let's start off with the worst title defense, the worst title fight that we have from these champions. Unfortunately, my brother, it's gonna have to be Pantoja versus Asakura. Now, going off pure merit, of course, this is the weakest one by a mile. This dude came into the UFC and got a immediate title shot, and it could honestly be bumped up. This fight could be bumped up if Asakura goes out here and just mauls his next 3 opponents, If he just goes out here and gets back-to-back first round KOs, this fight could move up, but it's just because we don't know if this dude is actually UFC level, and Pantoja in this fight exposed that he's not UFC level, and he's for sure not UFC champion level. But that being said, I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory, especially as we go on, giving the respect to the actual, true and tested UFC fighters. Asakura just has to go at the very bottom. With that being said, go down. We got Pavlovich versus Aspinall. And mainly because, yes, at the time, this was a very good win. Pavlovich was going on a KO spree. I believe he might have been undefeated at this point. Maybe he had one loss prior. I think he did have one loss prior, but this dude was on a spree getting nothing but first round KOs ever since joining the UFC. Nothing but first round KOs. Starting with Overeem and then moving all the way up even against Lewis, Tai Tuivasa, even, Curtis Blaydes. And then he gets knocked out against Aspinall in the first round. That being said, I feel like this dude has fallen off crazy. And, he was in my UFC fighters who are going to fall off. He was in that video. If you haven't watched that video, go watch it after this one. But yeah, not only do I think that fight is aging poorly for Aspinall, I just think it's going to continue to age poorly, because I think this dude's going to go on a pretty generational losing streak where we're going to wonder how the hell did this dude ever get to the top 5? How did he even get a title shot? With that being said, yeah, he's only lost to Aspinall and Volkov, but I don't know. I feel like the game plan's out there for Pavlovich. Yeah, he got a win over Rosenstruck, but I don't hold that very high. That being said, let's keep moving down. Maybe this one is too low. I'm not going to lie. It could honestly be bumped up, but it is what it is. Let's move down to the third worst title defense, and it's simply based off how this fight came to be. Makhachev versus Moicano. And yeah, I don't know if we have to explain it that deeply. It was supposed to be Makhachev versus Arman, and arguably could have been one of the best, if not the best title defense that Makhachev could have gotten. Instead, he got Moicano. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that we can go out and say, who's ever done that to Moicano? Yeah, I get it, but the short notice, the change of styles, you just have to put it in a negative regard to that. Yes, it's a good win, but stacked up to these other wins that we're going to see here shortly that, aren't on short notice, full training camp, dedicated to their actual fighter. It's just simply one of the weaker ones. It is what it is. Yes, it's a good win. It shows how dominant Makhachev was, but again, circumstances have to be brought into this. And it's the same thing with Pavlovich and Aspinall. That was a short notice fight. So again, you're seeing a theme here with short notice fights. I'm just giving it more respect than a Asakura, because these guys have proven that they're UFC level. But let's move up into another Pantoja fight. Unfortunately, my boy is going to be Steve Erceg. Now, I understand at the time, everyone was saying, Steve Erceg won. He didn't. He simply just didn't win that fight. And after that, he hasn't won a fight since then. So again, it's aging very poorly for for Pantoja, especially since he took him all 5 rounds to get that win. And let's not forget that this was a extremely undeserved title fight. He won over Matt Schnell. You know, he knocked out Matt Schnell, who got knocked out a million times prior. That's how he got his title shot. Everyone was saying in the lead up, this is one of the most undeserved title shots in recent memory. And yeah, especially now, because that Erceg hasn't had the success that he had before. The only positive side to this is I think Pantoja realized he needed to level up after this fight. And we saw immediately after this fight, this dude just entered into his second prime. So in my opinion, that's the only good thing that came from this fight. But let's keep moving down to... Unfortunately, I gotta put my GOAT on this list. He's pretty low too, but he has some good wins, but this is his worst win. Volkanovski versus the Korean Zombie. Now, I do believe, I could be retarded here saying this, but I'm pretty sure that Volk was supposed to fight Max for the 3rd time in this fight, but Max got injured or something along those lines. So they had to put in the Korean Zombie, and it was semi-short notice. Not only that, it wasn't the most deserved title fight in the world. You know, he was on a decent losing streak here, and, you know, he lost to Ortega, came back, got a win over Danige, and immediately got a title shot. So that's the kind of reasoning why it's so low. Yes, Volk looked amazing in this fight. Volk completely schooled the Korean Zombie, but we came out to find that, you know, it wasn't the same Korean Zombie. You know, Max Holloway did the same thing. Good win on paper. Looking into it, it's not that great of a win once you remember the whole backstory to it. Yes, Volk looked good in here. This is when we were saying who stops Volk. I don't even think Max can beat him at this point. He like entered into his prime. Let's keep moving down though. We got Sean Strickland DDP, the first fight. I have this fight so low. Yes, DDP did win. It was a split decision, but a lot of people, including myself, thought that Strickland won that fight. And when it's that close to the fight, we look at Strickland's career so far versus DDP, and yeah, going tooth and nail in their first fight with Strickland, in hindsight, is not the greatest, you know, the greatest victory in the world. Yes, he won the belt here, but, you know, as we move on, this is where we get, you know, some good wins here. So unfortunately, it's just the next one up. So I'm not saying this is a garbage, terrible win, but it has to go here. Just the wins above it is just better. And the main reasoning is, you know, he went tooth and nail and arguably lost to Sean Strickland. That's why it's so low. And you could honestly... No, I was going to say you could put Volk over here. I don't think so. I honestly think this is like a perfect list. But let's keep moving down. We got Tommy back in here. We got Aspinall back here with his other title defense. Aspinall versus Blaydes 2. This is a very good win for Tom Aspinall. Not only is it because he finished the guy who technically finished him, but he got him out of there in record time, you know. Still a first round knockout. It's a good win, but I have to put it here low just because it's heavyweight. And I don't regard heavyweight, you know, as highly as, you know, a middleweight, welterweight, and below, you know. Maybe some middleweights, maybe some light heavyweights, but no, I don't rate heavyweight that high, especially with the current division that we have. With that being said, let's keep moving down. We got another Volkanovski fight. Volkanovski versus Rodriguez. Now, this was a interim belt because Volk went up to fight Makhachev. It's a good win in hindsight because Volk, you know, having his first loss, coming back down, cutting that weight because he moved up, he bulked up to 155. He looked good in there. He had a cut back down to 145, coming off a loss. How good is he gonna look? He went there and smashed this dude. With that being said, really deserve a title fight. I mean, he was on a 1 fight win streak and got a interim title fight. That 1 fight win streak was a fluke win over Ortega. You know, that's the type of win streak this dude is on. Prior to that, he lost to Max Holloway. So, was it the most deserved? Absolutely not. Yeah, just an undeserved title fight. Plus, I don't really like I don't like this dude anyway. So, let's keep moving down. Let's get into some Makhachev title fights now. You guys can probably think, okay, which Makhachev fight is next? We're about 3/4 of the way done. So, which Makhachev fight would go here? Makhachev versus Poirier. Now, Poirier's a good fighter, yes. Unfortunately, you know, he's just an old dude out there. The story that is being told now after that fight is it took Makhachev 5 rounds to finish old man, you know, no hip Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier went out there, looked good, arguably could have been his retirement fight because that's how good he looked. And I was saying in the fight, if this dude can just last out until the final bell, I count that as a win for Poirier, being able to stay there for all 5 rounds. Almost happened, wasn't meant to be. It is what it is. With that being said, pretty much Poirier, this is a bigger win for Poirier than it was for Makhachev, in my opinion. That's why it's so low down here. Plus, again, old man Poirier, he said just recently he went into that fight with broken ribs. He has no hip at all. But let's keep moving down. We got another Pantoja fight here. The one that just recently happened. Kai Kara-France. Yes, it's a good win. Yes, Kai Kara-France was arguably one of, if not the #1 contender. It was a good win. Maybe this fight will age better or worse. I don't know. But right now I'm going to have him here. I'm not going to have, all of Pantoja's fights at #1 just because he's the lowest weight class and arguably one of the more skilled weight classes. I'm not going to put it there. I'm looking at, okay, is this current Kai Kara-France, is that a better win than that previous version of Poirier? And I think the Kai Kara-France version is a better win than that current version of Poirier. But moving down, we got to have some more Volkanovski here. So you're probably going to be very shocked at this one. We're about halfway through. I got Holloway the second fight, mainly because I do think out of their trilogy, the second fight was Volkanovski's worst performance by a mile. And that's mainly because, the whole incident of them having to wake up Volkanovski midway through the night and him having to take some melatonin to go back asleep. So we had Sleeping Man Volk here. Let's keep moving down though, because low-key I feel like that's gonna be a little bit controversial, but I don't think so, to be honest. This is like the next one is practically right in the middle, so we're halfway through, and pretty much all of these ones are gonna be good title defense. We're not gonna have any mediocre, boring, means nothing type of title defenses. These are all good title defenses. But let's move on to the next one. Unfortunately, brother, I'm gonna have to do you for the second time. The GOAT is back on here, and in many people's opinion, his best win. I mean, no. I got Volkanovski versus Ortega here. Now, is this the win that got Volkanovski on the map? I would say yes. This is probably the win that changed a lot of people's mindset on him, because a lot of people didn't like him coming off that Max Holloway win. A lot of people weren't fans of him because of that win. I think this win did a lot for Volk's popularity, and it had to do with that locked-in gilly. I think the reason I have this fight so high, because honestly, Ortega was on a 1-fight win streak, beating fucking Korean Zombie to get this title shot. He came off that ass whooping to Holloway, came back 2 years later, beat Korean Zombie, and got a title shot. So most deserving, no. One of the bigger names, yes. But this fight did so much for Volk's just popularity. When people think of Volk's peak win, they think of this one just because of that adversity he had to fight through. It's a good win. I'm putting it right in the middle pretty much in this list, but there's better wins. Volk has better wins in my opinion. Let's keep moving down though. I got Moreno versus Pantoja here. Moreno was looking to have a good legacy of finally being able to defend the belt. No, Pantoja came in here and schooled him. Not schooled him. It was a close ass fight. I need to rewatch it. Looking back at it, I think back in the day I thought it could have gone Moreno's way. I have to rewatch it though, but yeah, this is a good fight. Moreno, a key name in this division. Pantoja coming out here. We got that classic line from Pantoja asking if his dad's proud of him now. I think this is a good win. I think at that time, Ortega at that time versus Moreno at that time, I think Moreno's a better win on your resume than you can get Ortega at that exact time. Because again, he was on a 1-fight win streak against fucking the Korean Zombie, where Moreno fought one of the better flyweights in the world multiple times in Figueiredo, but we don't really need to talk about that. Let's move down. I got O'Malley versus Dvalishvili 1 here. Might be a little bit too high, but I don't know. I think this is a good placement. O'Malley, a defending champ. Yes, defending against, the punching bag himself, Chito Vera. Still a defending champ. Huge name value, though. I think that's why I'm ranking it so much higher than a Moreno and Ortega, Holloway too. O'Malley is one of the bigger names at Dvalishvili. This is one of the bigger wins he could have get name value-wise, just because O'Malley has a ton of, star power. So took a lot of that from O'Malley. Going into their rematch, yes, Merab had a win here against Umar, but he took a lot of shine from O'Malley onto himself, where now a lot of people are saying how much they hate Merab. He's a little, annoying gremlin. Yes, low-key, that's still kind of true, but he's kind of entertaining. And I think that has to do a lot with taking the shine away from O'Malley. But yeah, I got O'Malley versus Dvalishvili here. I could see this being a little bit too high. I could see that being here, but I like it here. Moving down, you gotta listen to me because yes, this is gonna be a hot take. I know people aren't really gonna agree with this, but I got Topuria versus Oliveira. Yes, it's impressive that Topuria got that double belt status, but it was against Oliveira, which, you know, really isn't the most impressive thing to do, you know. The fact that we had washed Michael Chandler coming out here and rocking Oliveira in his recent fight, you know, I was saying it to my dad that because he thought Dubronx was gonna get it done, and I'm saying, you know, if sloppy, you know, washed, coming off a 2-year-long hiatus, Michael Chandler can find the chin of Oliveira and rock him, you're telling me Topuria doesn't? And that's what happened. Yeah, it's just this point in his time to like. Oliveira is not the same dude. You know, he's on a 1-fight win streak against Chandler, and you're telling me that's a good win to not finish Michael Chandler, the rematch. Again, Michael Chandler out for like 2 years. You're telling me that's a good win, that you had to go all 5 rounds and almost lose the 5th round. No, not a good win. And yes, name value wise, it's a good win. Getting a belt at lightweight, crazy good accomplishment. But the win itself, no, I'm putting it pretty low, to be honest, just because I don't rank this win that great. We look at his last 3 fights, and this is by far the worst one. If it was someone like an Arman, though, might be one of the top 5, top 3. If it's a Makhachev, probably the best win, but let's keep moving down. I know that's like a hot take and people aren't going to agree. You know, fight about it in the comments below. I'll argue with you, but let's move down. I know people aren't going to agree with this either. I have Charles Oliveira versus Makhachev. They're still high up on this list, you know. I have nothing but the best of the best title fights here now, pretty much, you know. We're not at the bottom anymore. We're getting close to the top. This is still a good win. I don't know where it's ranked right now. You'll see on screen I've been numbering them. I don't know where we are, but Oliveira versus Makhachev. The reasoning is, yes, Oliveira was a defending champ. He was dominant. But I don't know. We saw once he had to go up against good wrestlers, he had nothing for them. You know, Oliveira, people say he choked in that fight, but Makhachev made it look easy. Dariush, that was a good win. You know, he did good against Dariush, 1st round knockout. Arman, again, I could have saw Oliveira winning that one, but maybe I have this way too low. You know, maybe Oliveira isn't as bad of a win as I'm making it seem like, but he just wasn't the number 1 contender when I was moving to Topuria. For Oliveira versus Makhachev, it's a good win, you know, especially because of what Oliveira was doing in that division, gain all these title defenses. I think I have him a little bit low here. I'm not going to lie. I agree with that now. It is what it is. You can't change it, but let's keep moving down. This is a semi-recent fight, a few years-ish ago. Pantoja versus Royval. Now, I think getting I think this should be below both of those Oliveira fights. Fuck, I kind of fucked it up, but it is what it is. Going into that fight, you know, Royval, who's on a 3-fight win streak in flyweight, and, you know, 2 of them were by finish. Matt Schnell, 1st round submission, and Nikolai, 1st round KO. Got himself a title shot. It was semi-competitive. You know, we still go look into the division now, and he still cleared a lot of these guys. Royval is by far one of the best, if not the best, contender at flyweight so far. You know, he's beaten a lot of these name dudes. He's beat Moreno. He's beat the undefeated Tyra. Unfortunately, lost to Van, but yeah, at this point in time, I think Royval, honestly, I might stand on business. I think Royval was a better win at that point in time than Oliveira at that point in time. Maybe not against Makhachev, though. Yeah, I think I would switch Oliveira, and Pantoja Royval, to be honest. But yeah, other than that, nothing but the best matchups. Let's keep moving down. I got another Makhachev fight here. Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2. Now, you're probably wondering, how is the second one where he finished Volkanovski lower than the one where he almost lost? That is because you gotta think of the background stuff. What happened during that fight? It was supposed to be Makhachev versus Oliveira 2. And short notice, out of shape, fat, depressed Volkanovski showed up late notice, trying to get that belt, trying to rewrite the first fight. It didn't end up happening. Yes, it's still a really good win, but there's always going to be an asterisk behind it. And unfortunately, I think that asterisk is huge. In my opinion, there's no way Makhachev would have got that much better where he can just completely dominate Volk compared to the first fight where it's stupidly competitive. With that being said, yes, there could have been some improvements made, but I think a lot of it has to do with the short notice. Let's be realistic. Let's be realistic here. Short notice is the reason why he got knocked out. You know, am I coping? Hell no. This is just the facts. But let's keep moving down. DDP versus Strickland 2. At this point in time, yes, Volkanovski was still pound for pound, I believe, #1 at this point. I don't care. The Strickland rematch, that win is more impressive than the Volkanovski rematch because it wasn't on short notice. Strickland was in shape for that fight, prepared to fight DDP, had a whole training camp dedicated for DDP for the rematch, and yet DDP came out here and completely dominated and destroyed Strickland, completely washed him out. And yeah, a dominating fight. I think a dominating fight like this is more impressive than, yeah, you beat the pound for pound #1 guy, but there's a shit ton of asterisks behind it. That's why I have this here. Let's keep moving down though. The other DDP fight, DDP versus Adesanya. Yes, Adesanya was a win one, lose one type of fighter at that point, but still a huge name value dude. You know, it was still super competitive, and this was almost like the defining point to see if DDP was as legit as he says he is. It turns out he was. I think it's still a good fight. I don't know. I feel like it might be a little bit too high because at that point in time, again, Adesanya was a win one, lose one type of fighter, but the name value, you know, he's again one of the biggest stars in the sport. DDP took a lot of shine off of him. It's okay where it is. As we get like closer and closer to the #1 spot, it's very hard to pick, is this one better than the other one, because they're so close to be like, it's hard to definitively say this one's better than this one. With that being said, let's move down. Holloway versus Volkanovski 1. I still have this really high up here. Yes, Volk still got the win here. Was it super dominating? No, but Holloway was out here looking like he was gonna be a Hall of Famer, GOAT contender, defending the belt. You know, he was looking like he was gonna go down as the best featherweight to ever do it. Volkanovski came out here and completely destroyed those plans. A good win, put Volk on the map. And yes, he got a little bit of hate for this because, again, people thought Holloway won this fight, just like the second fight they thought he won. But it's a staple win in Volk's career. And I think at that time, it's a way better win than Adesanya. It's a way better win than Strickland. And at time for time, fighter per fighter, at that point in time, it's a better win than Volkanovski coming off short notice. Let's keep moving down to another Volk win. Volk versus Lopes. Again, you have to think about all the stuff that went on in the background, coming off back-to-back knockouts, coming in here a whole year off, getting into the 36-year-old curse. Everything was stacked up against my boy Volkanovski, and yet he comes out here and shows him who the GOAT is. It's Volk. And again, it's not like Lopes is a can. He was he still is. You know, this might age terribly and he might go on a huge downfall. But Lopes was and still is one of the most dangerous dudes. We look at his record. Yes, his most recent wins were all by decision. However, versus Ortega, he literally knocked him out and then woke him back up with a follow shot. Dan Ige, this shit was on short notice where Lopes had to cut weight like 2 times. Extremely short notice, just still beat Ige. It's not a great win, but still beat him, even though he had to cut weight twice. 300 versus Yusuf, knocked that dude out in the first round. Sabatini, first round knockout. Tucker, first round submission. Again, he was just out here completely destroying dudes and had a very close fight with the boogeyman of this division versus Evloev on short notice. This is a good win. And it's not like Lopes is a can out here. We just went through his resume. It's a good win. Let's keep moving down. Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2. The improvements that Merab made, incredible. The fact that he was able to finish Sean O'Malley, very good as well. And no excuses coming out of that O'Malley camp. You know, before there was excuse after excuse after excuse. A good win. This is how Merab should have won this fight, honestly. In this rematch, he should have won it like this. He should have finished O'Malley. And again, it's one of the best wins that we have so far. Let's keep moving down, though. I have Pereira versus Ankalaev. And it has to do with just how easy Pereira had been making it look. And Pereira was running through that division and doing a speed run as a GOAT conversation Hall of Famer. And the fact that Ankalaev went out there and beat him, it's a great win. It might age poorly, but when you beat someone, you take all of their wins as well. Again, Pereira was on a huge streak. He was, again, one of the, if not the biggest name value dude in the promotion at that time. It's a good win for Ankalaev. As time goes on, will it drop down? Maybe, probably, you know, we'll see. But regardless, I think it's a good win, and we're in the top 10 by now. So yeah, a top 10 win. Let's go down to fucking Topuria. Volkanovski versus Topuria. It's a good win. It would be a lot higher if it wasn't what was it? Fucking stupid, like a 3-month turnaround after being knocked out by Makhachev, something like that. Yeah, it would be higher if it wasn't for that, but it's still a great win. It's what got Topuria the belt, and there's nothing much you have to say about that. It's a good win, but moving down, again, think of the time, think of the things behind it. At the time, getting a win over Belal Muhammad is better than getting a win over Volkanovski at the time of these two fighters. But Muhammad versus Della Maddalena, it's a good win. It's a top 5 now? It's one of the top 5 wins that the champions have right now. Who is doing that to Belal Muhammad? Especially nowadays when this dude is on a spree. No one was defending the takedowns like that. No one was piecing him up on the feet. Nobody was doing that to Muhammad. And again, JDM, one of the best wins that he could have got. The best win he could have got for that, to get that title by a mile, in my opinion. And yeah, we'll see how he does against Makhachev. If he beats Makhachev, that's the best win. That's number 1 by a mile. I think so, but let's keep moving down. We got Volk versus Holloway 3, a top 4 title defense. This is where Volk, got into his prime and just completely washed Holloway. He made it look like Holloway shouldn't even be in there, where we saw in Holloway 1 and 2 stupidly competitive. Volk just leveled up and completely exposed the game plan, I guess, the style of Max Holloway. And yeah, again, one of the best wins you can get in the UFC. That being said, this is so dirty because I have Holloway here again. Topuria versus Holloway. It has to do with how he did it. And yes, Volkanovski got a win over Holloway, who... Let's quickly look at Holloway and how he got that title shot, because I believe he was on a 1-2 fight win streak. I think this is when he fought Calvin Kattar. Yeah, so he fought Calvin Kattar, completely washed Calvin Kattar, had a fairly competitive fight with Rodriguez, and yeah, it was a good version of Holloway. And then Volkanovski just came out here and schooled him. But after that, we had a 3-fight win streak Holloway against Allen. He did good against Allen. It was semi-competitive during certain points. Good win. Retired my boy, the Korean Zombie, and then flatline knocked out Gaethje. I think Holloway leveled up during that time between the Volkanovski fight and the Topuria fight. I think at the time this is a better win. Plus, again, you have to think of the background stuff. No one was able to drop Holloway. Topuria dropped him and then finished him. He wasn't like flatline like an Oliveira or a Volkanovski, but he wasn't fully there. He wasn't completely out, but he wasn't fully there. Top 3 wins that any of these champions have gotten. Let's get into the second place winner though. Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Now, people might say this is way too high. People might say this should be number 1. Was it a stupidly undeserved title shot? Yes and no. Was it undeserved the way he got his way up to a number 1 contender? 100%. Because we look at his record, the only name value dude he has here is fucking Sandhagen. But he unanimously destroyed Sandhagen. So it shows that he should be up there for a contender fight. He shows he's one of the best fighters in this division. The Barcelos win is aging very well. First round knockout. We saw Barcelos go out here and fraud check Payne Tabit and then beat old man Garbrandt. Other than that, he has a Kelleher fight here, first round submission. There's really not that much impressive stuff on this dude's resume other than what I just said. But he's a good fighter. He's pound for pound one of the best fighters. And I think if he rematches with Dvalishvili, there's a chance he can get it done. Again, Umar Nurmagomedov is a crazy win. It doesn't have the legacy behind it, but if you know that Umar he's young too. He's on track to be one of the greatest in this sport too, not just in this division, but in this sport. I think as time goes on, this win will age so well. Talking about a win that ages well, I think this is the best win out of all these championship fights. Makhachev versus Volkanovski won. This wasn't short notice. This wasn't 2 weeks notice that I'm still a little bit fat. I'm not even in shape. This is bulked up, knowing he's fighting Makhachev next, knowing he's fighting for a championship belt up a weight class. He looked good for this division. He wasn't, a little bit fluffy. He was in shape, and he went tooth and nail with the pound for pound king, and Makhachev got it done, And after that, the win aged good. We go and look at Volkanovski. He took the loss to Makhachev. It is what it is. He went back down and defended his belt against the interim champ of Rodriguez and finished him in the 3rd round. Not even into championship rounds, into the 3rd round. Then we get the short notice versus Makhachev. We already know how that feels. He fought Topuria. That loss is aging good where Topuria is right now in the sport. And then we have Lopes, and he went out there and he beat Lopes. With that being said, again, I think this is the best win. I hold this win very highly just because, again, at that point in time, Volkanovski was undoubtedly pound for pound number one of the best fighters in the entire sport, and was looking like he was going to be a GOAT, you know? So yeah, that is my list. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree with my list? Would you switch the positions up anywhere? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching to the end of the video. This is like one of the longest videos I've made in a long time, if not forever. So I hope you guys enjoy this longer video, and I will see you guys in my next video.